I want to paint you a picture, tell you a story. And this story is set on a vast, strange, unknown sea and the crossing of this unknown sea. Now, this unknown sea is scattered with sirens, mysterious whirlpools, ancient mythical monsters, all kinds of different things, all kinds of dangers and treacheries on this unknown sea. And this unknown sea is the territory that we will be crossing in the very short coming future. And basically, there are three vessels that are trying to cross or will be trying to cross this unknown sea. And these three vessels are all ships, you could call them. They're ship, call them vessels, but they're ships really. And so they all have that thing in common. So they're all, so we could say that they all possess the characteristics of a seafaring vessel. Now you see the first vessel is a highly functional vessel. So this vessel is it's set up. It's got a very high degree of functionality. It's like a conventional ship, you could say, by today's standards. And it's got everything that it needs, basically. It's set up to make the journey. And then the second ship is what we would call a super high tech, unimaginably advanced sailing vessel with all these kind of new types of navigational technologies and ways to mitigate some of the waves and the choppy seas that we would find on this mysterious sea. And so it's got every kind of device you would, and the people that sail on this vessel are really tuned into the tech. They're basically very, very tuned into the tech, and the tech determines how they read their reality, how they cross this unknown sea. And the third vessel is a much more ancient looking thing. It's a vessel that is crewed by a wise crew, a crew that has studied the winds. They are particularly adept at working with nature, and they have a knowledge of the how ancient societies, ancient cultures crossed these previously crossed vast oceans and seas without seemingly any of the modern technology that we've got. And so you could say that this vessel is kind of like it's a vessel with vision. It's a vessel that has a true spirit to it, a true essence to it. And the people that are crossing this unknown sea, they have a very specific vision for what they're going to create when they get to the other side of this sea. Whereas the other two, the main purpose of their crossing is really to get to the other side. So we could liken this really. The reason I'm telling you this story is, is that this is really all about how you as a creative are going to cross this unknown sea and what will make the difference between getting to the other side or floundering in the middle of this vast sea. Now you see the first ship is the functional ship. So you could liken this to someone who's like a functional creative, someone who they're adept at creating websites or logos or brochures, and they're a working creative, and they do it for the money. It's some of them earn good money, or it's a living, and they do a good job. They're very skilled and they're competent and they can do the job, and they've been doing it for some time maybe, and that's who they are. And the high tech crew is more like the kind of creative that we saw very recently in the whole NFT kind of thing, where there was a whole thing about getting onto the. I mean, I couldn't even get onto the platform mostly. You had to sign up with the digital wallet, whether it's MetaMask or some other thing, and go through all these weird protocols. And you had to understand all of the technology of the platforms, Nifty Gateway and OpenSea or whatever it was. And they all had their protocols, and there was always this group of creators, artists on these platforms that had mastered the technology. So there was these kind of mind-bending animations and all this kind of stuff. And yet, when you really looked at it, you realize that other than it looking great and it had all these incredible abilities to entice you through the technology, there wasn't really anything much behind it. And then you've got the third type, which I call the visionary creative. And the visionary creative is sets out with a vision. There's a higher reason for them doing stuff. And I remember the days when I used to work in, well, it's only very briefly, when about 2.5 years that I worked in agencies, creative design agencies. And in a way, I'd come from art college, and for me, there was always, in some ways, I didn't even really like art. I didn't even really like, but it was a way that I could express something more. It was a way that I could tap into something that was fundamental, explore reality. I had a gift for exploring reality through this lens of creativity, this lens of art, design. And, really, that was the thrust. There was something there. I was trying to express something deeper, something more fundamental. I was exploring the essence of life through these mediums of typography, of image, of constructing narratives. So in a way, I was creating the third vessel, the visionary vessel that would go across this sea. And to put no finer point on it, there's only one vessel that's going to make it across this next vast unknown sea. And it is the last one, of course, spoiler alert, last one. You see, the functional vessel is actually going to be the first to sink in this environment that we're moving into now. And I'm not happy about this. I'm not saying this is a good thing or anything, but the point is that we have to know what this territory, how, we have to know in a sense, although it's an unknown sea, we have to know that the fact that to get across this unknown sea, we have to tap into something more. You see, the functional ship will go down first because it just relies on its functionality. It doesn't have the people on board are functional. They work on it in a functional way. They think in a functional way. And you see, that's not going to be enough when the waves hit 30 feet and the sirens come out. And, it's like there's not going to be that sense of something to carry them across. So, in a way, they're going to be bailing out, and they already are. Right? When you see what AI has already done to the creative industries, so many of these industries now are already seeing the ship of functionality going down because this technology will vastly outfunction anything that we've seen previously, no matter where you've been. And in a way, I've been here from the whole journey because, I was designing interfaces for an Apple project way back in the 1990s. I was one of the first, myself and my business partner at the time, we opened what was called then a multimedia agency. So we were working on that, that interface between technology and design and art, creativity. And, so we were there right at the get-go. This was all just dial-up speed, internet, nothing at all. And I go back even further than that, where I was originally the very first job I ever had. I used to laugh and call it lick and stick. I mean, literally, we were we had waxing machines where we would wax sheets of type output typography onto these sort of vinyl sheets, and then we'd put them with hot wax onto these boards, and then they would be photographed, and then they would turn into brochures and stuff. So all this stuff had to be laid out with scalpels and rulers and stuff like that. So, I've come from that in a way. I've come from that side of things, and I still am incredibly analog. I'm not really. So, some people say, oh, you were a digital pioneer. Yes, but I'm still incredibly analog, and really this story will illustrate why I am analog and why I tend to remain that way, because there is something that we need to understand about where we're going. So anyway, the functional ship is going to go down pretty quick. It's already going down. It's taking on water, and there's no way to stop that ship going down. Now, the high-tech ship is also going to flounder, unfortunately. And the reason is that, one strike of lightning or whatever it is that just takes out the electricity. So no matter how many backup systems they've got, these guys are relying on the tech. These people are relying on the technology to get them across. They're relying on the fact that this ship is like no other ship. It's like no other vessel. It's got all of the different things that you would need to get it across to the other side. And yet, when that technology, or if that technology is taken out for any reason, that ship has no capacity. The people on board, they don't know anything about the winds. They don't know anything about how the seas work. They have no sense of mystery about where they're going. So this this thing that they've created, this high-tech environment, this high-tech vessel, will not get them to the other side. It will not, because it will last longer than the functional vessel. So it will carry on further, and it has more distance in it, because for a while still, those people that can show incredible mastery of these technologies and utilize them to show incredible mastery will actually be able to go quite far. But ultimately, it's the vessel with vision that has the only chance of really making it across to the other side of this unknown sea, and establishing something meaningful on the territories of the other side of this unknown sea. And the reason is that, you see, all of these other things that we can bring on board, they're all replaceable. And the thing that isn't replaceable is this sense of mystery, this sense of something beyond thought, something that we're trying to communicate. And this sense of bringing what like the visionary creator, bringing something to life that has a vision, that has something behind it, that is really fundamentally channeling something. And I mean that, I really do mean that, in the most intense spiritual sense, that it's the only thing that all of this other stuff can't replace. It can mimic it, but it can't replace it. So when something has that, like when a piece of art or when a piece of design or whatever it is, a creative idea carries this sense of vision, this sense of wonder, this sense of opening up the world to something beyond just the normal average workaday stuff. When that is present, it's visceral. You can feel it. People feel it. People understand it. It's got something there that is, in a way, almost inscrutable. You can feel it, you can sense it, you know it's there, and yet you can't quite place your finger on it. And it's creativity that carries that energy, that current through. That ship that contains the wisdom of ages, it looks to the ancients, and it looks to the way that philosophies have woven together reality, and it tries to put different slants on it. It brings new facets of those things to life for us to look at. It creates new and unique ways of understanding who we are. Now, this may sound very grandiose, but you can do that even when you're creating a branding project for someone. It's because when you understand that what that's about is communicating something fundamental as human beings, and it's about connection, it's about opening us up to something that is fundamental to who we are, our soul, our spirit. And you see, this is the whole game because that final vessel, it has the capacity to navigate all the difficulties. It has the capacity to bypass the sirens, to not get caught in these strange riptides that pull us off course. Because when you have a vision that's connected to something fundamental, it's like a mission. That vision that you're creating from your art, from your ideas, is tethered to something beyond just functionality or beyond just something that looks incredible. Now, this doesn't mean that the people in the last ship don't use technology. There's nothing wrong with using the tech. Yes, of course you use technology, but that technology is in service to something bigger, something greater. And your vision is tethered again to something greater, a higher power, you could call it. And that's when we have this opportunity now to focus on the higher possibility, focus on the vision, to bring something to life that is truly meaningful, that also calls upon us to become the kind of people, the kind of individuals, the kind of groups, the kind of cultures that bring amazing ideas to life. This is an opportunity now to do that because the other ways will not they will not make it across. And it is what it is. I'm not saying that it's I'm not saying this is a good situation necessarily, but it's a situation that we have to look at as creatives and we have to work with it. And our ideas, when they don't carry something greater than just the things that in and of themselves. So, for example, when I worked with David Bowie, the work I did with David Bowie, it was always trying to communicate something fundamental about who we were as human beings. That was really what he was doing. But all of the artwork, all of the things and the things that I've created since, they've all been in that, in service to that, in service to something higher. So in a way, I'm the vessel, and the creator becomes the vessel through which, that transports these ideas out into the world, that sails these ideas out into the world. And I think these three vessels are an important way to look at it and to understand in your own creative journey, which vessel are you currently sailing? Are you the functional vessel that most people that are sailing functional vessels, that's what they are. They don't have an ambition to do something more, to use their skills to bring something more. But maybe you do. Maybe you find yourself on one of those functional vessels, but you have a deeper idea. You have a passion to do something more with your creativity, to really use your creativity in a way that it lights something up. I call it the vital flame. It brings something to life. It has a fundamental functionality in the world. In reality, it does something. It really does something. And that's the key, you see. Now, if you're someone who's on the high-tech ship vessel, that doesn't mean you can't jump ship onto the visionary vessel. But you have to understand which one you're on, and you have to understand what it means to be on either one of those. Now, in many ways, at one point, the high-tech vessel looked like the best one to be on because everyone was like saying, "Oh, yes, if you master these technologies, you'll be fine." But you see, that's not even the case anymore. And it definitely won't be the case as we move into this, as we cross this unknown sea. Because just using technology for the sake of using technology, the technology itself will be able to do that. It will perform all of that in and of itself. So really, coming back to many things, people ask me, with the deck that my Starman Tarot and now my new deck that I'm creating, this Revelation Starman Revelations deck, they say, "What are you using AI for it?" Well, and then I say, "Well, look, I'm putting this whole thing together myself. I'm putting this whole thing. I'm using drawn objects. I'm using written stuff. I've got flatbed scanners. I've got paint. I've got gold leaf. I've got sticks. I've got rocks. I've got sacred objects that I've collected from places where I'm photographing those. Why am I doing it this way? I'm doing it this way because I'm putting it together. Now, I do use AI for sure. If I want to cut something out or create a 3D rendering of something instead of spending, 20 hours in 3D Studio or something like that, I would use Mid-Journey or Nano Banana or something like that. But these are just to cut the corners off doing these arduous things that actually don't really mean very much. But the actual thing itself is carried forward by a vision. And that vision is that I want to open people up to the miraculous nature of life. I want people to look at something and feel that energy of me trying to communicate to them how wonderful and miraculous life is, all these beautiful, incredible shapes and geometries that nature brings to life, all the way that our minds form around ideas and the way we tell stories, all of these things, I'm putting them together. I want to put them together because they're about how the human being functions, what brings us to life as human beings. This is what it's about. And so the answer is yes, I do use AI, but I put everything together. I mean, if you look at, I would show you, but just the hundreds of layers of objects all putting together. So I use a computer to put this together, but it comes together through a whole range of different things. Huge amounts of analog work goes into it as well. And my hand actually writing and drawing and stuff like that because that is coming through from somewhere else. So, in a way, the reason I'm on the last ship is because I believe that that last ship, the vision, our ability to channel something fundamental, something greater than just functionality or technology, is the thing that is going to keep the creative spirit alive in the world. And I encourage you to see, if you have a vision, if you have something, if you've got that spark, to begin opening up to that now, to begin working on it and understand what, at this current moment in time, which vessel are you currently on? And just make that investigation. So this is an interesting time that we're going through, and it can be an amazing, expansive time. It can also be a time of incredible stress and ruin for many, many people. But you see, the more of us that are able to communicate this idea of there being a higher potential that comes through us as creatives, the creative spirit, I call it, that is something that is communicated on a different level to technology. It doesn't use the same system. You could call it, well, if you want to call it, I actually wrote a book called The Seed. It's a science fiction novel. And in that, I had a thing called spirit technology. So we could say that spirit, the creative spirit, is a form of technology, but it's a form of technology that is so far in advance of anything that AI could even think about. And this idea that AI will turn it, we now have gods walking the earth and stuff like that in whatever, these new beings. The very thing that they don't have is spirit. And I would wage that no matter how advanced they get, it's a bit like Novel Harari said in can't remember whether it was the last book he wrote. Was it Homo Deus? Was it Homo Deus? Yeah, I can't remember now. I know Homo Sapiens, and there was another one. But anyway, it was the last one, I think, where he said there's going to be this, and I'm not saying I'm particularly enamored with him as a, he doesn't seem that happy as a person, but he made a good point here, which that this divergence between incredible intelligence and consciousness, so we're conscious and intelligence, and then there's just intelligence. So AI may venture off into all this extraordinary, unthought of intelligence, but no matter how far it goes down there, it doesn't have spirit. It doesn't have that sense of connection to something ancient and something deep, 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 deep. The spiritual nature of a biological entity living and experiencing the world. This is the essence. And when you bring a vision to life, when you have a vision, when you have a purpose, when the thing that you're creating has that quintessence embedded, encrypted into it, then you're working on a different level. You're working on a level that I call the visionary. And in a way, we're all being called upon to embrace more and more of this visionary energy, because it's the only thing, in my humble opinion, that will make it to the other side.